guest this morning, and we're hoping that we'll pay more attention to the health of our homes. Daniella Chase is a nutritionist and clinical practitioner, also the author of the new home book, Detox. It's called Home Detox. She joins me this morning with some thoughts on how we're making specifically our coffee and tea, which should be very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
So glad to be here.
So first off, tell readers what they can find in this book.
Well, this book is all about hidden toxins that are in our modern homes. We have them in every room of the house. So this is actually a room-by-room guide to identifying and removing those toxic items. And what I mean by toxins is things like plastics, like we were just talking about, and Teflon, PFAs, and chemicals, solvents. You just wouldn't believe how many of these toxins that cause diseases are in consumer goods.
You know, I'm looking at the back of her book right here, and it already lists 4 things: memory foam, air freshener, shower curtain, non-stick pans. Okay, literally, I knew this was the case, but I don't think I've ever really acknowledged it, because it's interesting. I had a friend tell me, in other countries, some of these are not even allowed, these products.
That's right. Europe, Australia, Japan, they're really, they have much better regulatory agencies as far as protecting us from these things.
So if our government's not protecting us,
we need to do it ourselves.
Exactly. So let's
and we can.
Yes, and
that's the positive message, because before I dive into some of the scary information, I just want everyone to know that you can control what's in your own home. And really, even the Center for Disease Control now says that we have 2 to 5 times the amount of toxins in our own homes than outside our homes.
The CDC is saying this.
This is where exposure is coming from.
Okay.
And we can remove these things, and there finally are all great alternatives. You know, I mean, we all grew up with Tupperware, but now we have glass food storage containers, and we can get away from it. We should do a whole segment on food storage containers.
Please, let's actually put a pin in that one, because I think it might be even easier for me to stack them too. So let's not get me started on that. But let's get started on what you've brought here today. Some of the healthiest ingredients that we can have are in coffee and tea, but then do we kind of like undermine that with the way we're making it?
Exactly. In fact, I wanted to talk about coffee today because a new statistic just came out that says that 42% of American households use these coffee pod machines. And this is really the most toxic way to make coffee.
Are you talking about
That's what I'm talking about.
The little coffee pods?
Yes, and so when that hot water gets pushed into those pods, what happens is nanoplastics and small particles of plastics end up in your coffee. When you drink that, all those particles go into your digestive system, and they're tiny enough to actually get absorbed into our bloodstream. And that's how they become part of our plaque and cause heart disease. That's how they interrupt our endocrine system, and they can trigger certain types of cancer, like breast cancer. I love that.
Forget those pods. What about the metal ones? I have a machine that uses the metal ones. Are those okay?
Many of those are aluminum. That's also a breast cancer. It's a breast carcinogen. It triggers breast cancer. So.
Jeez Louise. All right, so how do I make coffee?
Okay, so starting down on this end here, I wanted to just show you these 2, because these were awfully popular to make espresso on the stove top, but they're actually aluminum. So we need to avoid these also. Avoid aluminum tea kettles and any aluminum coffee equipment.
Okay.
And those machines, the coffee pod machines, really just need to check out your own machine, because they almost all have lots of plastic tubing and aluminum pieces.
Oh, so even like in my because I was sitting here thinking, oh, I don't have to worry because my coffee pot is stainless steel. But if my coffee maker is plastic.
Yes, you're still getting the phthalates from the plastics.
Man.
So let me show you the easier way. And some of this is really old school. It's just kind of a reminder. But first of all, we want to start out with fresh ground coffee that's organic, so we avoid those pesticides and herbicides.
Okay, my coffee that I make is non-negotiable, so we're going to have to move on.
Okay. Okay. And then when you buy your coffee in bulk, you can just bring your own container, so you can skip the bag, because really, even though these are paper, they're often lined with plastic.
That's interesting. So as soon as you get it, maybe get it, will that help if I get it out of the aluminum plastic baggie?
You can bring your own container to the store and grind right into it, to a glass container.
Clever.
Then you put
and
that
it looks
in the freezer.
prettier.
Yeah, decanting. Right?
Yeah, I like that.
And then another way to make coffee, other than the pods, is just to do the pour over. But when you use a pour over, be sure that you don't use plastic Melitas. Use the ceramic or the stainless steel.
Okay.
And then I have the papers here, the liners. Be sure to get the unbleached, because the bleach often have toxic glues and chemicals from the bleaching process.
I at least do this.
Okay.
So there's something I'm doing that's healthy. And then a good old-fashioned coffee press. My mom believed in this. I always feel like my coffee comes out way too strong in a coffee press.
Yeah, you might need to just cut down or have a bigger grind. So, you know, if it's a really fine grind, you end up with a lot of that in the coffee. But yeah, these French presses are great, and they're really the most ecological way to go, because you're not using paper at all, and you can just rinse it out and put your grounds in the compost.
All right, we can do this. Okay, so get myself a coffee press and a kettle, but not one that's aluminum. This isn't aluminum. This looks like it's cast.
It is. It's a Dansk, and it's cast iron with ceramic over it. So you can use stainless steel or glass or the ceramics.
Okay. We've got about 2 minutes left, so I want to get to tea, because I know we got a lot of tea drinkers in the audience, myself included. These are so pretty, these bags.
They are pretty and they're expensive, but they're plastic. Oh. They're completely plastic. And a McGill University study just found that one plastic tea bag releases 11 billion microplastic particles into a glass of tea, and 3 billion nanoplastics. So that's a lot of those little plastic particles going right into our bodies.
So these became a fad for a little bit, but we're going to see them drop to the bottom of the... oh, that's a shame about that joke. It just didn't come out. But what about these?
So we just need to go back to the paper. The paper tea bags or loose leaf tea. And you can just... Good. Yeah, Bengal spice. And then loose leaf tea, you can just use these little stainless steel gizmos or a little tea kettle that has its own little strainer in it.
And you know what? That makes it kind of a nicer thing to do.
Yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. And then one last thing I wanted to show you. This is so fun. This is silicone. So this is an inert material that's completely non-toxic. And this little guy is a tea strainer. So you can,
how cute!
You put your loose leaf tea in here and then pop them back together, and then he just hangs in there, makes your tea for you in the morning.
And then you get to hang out with a cute little sloth in your cup. This is so fantastic, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you said, you know, it's all the negative stuff, but the truth is it is good to know. It's a thing that, you know, we don't quite think about as much, and a simple, slowly starting to kind of take these things out of our lives could be, you know, really good overall.
Absolutely. We can help prevent disease for our whole family, and also if we're already sick, we can take the load off of our body so that we can heal quicker.
That's so fascinating. Thank you so much, Daniella. It was a pleasure talking to you. We'll have you back again for that food storage segment.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we'll have you